Not an easy thing to be sitting in a momentum and just reach for something that is different. And yet the books that we write and the processes that we offer is all about this. But what we're really wanting to demonstrate here, and we want you to feel it, we want all of you to feel it, but we really want you to get this. We want you to understand that it's perfectly all right for you to be in a place where there is momentum that is carrying you where you don't want to be. We want you to make peace with that momentum. We want you to say, it's a natural consequence of being physically focused. It's a natural consequence of what I've been thinking about. We want you to try to find words that soothe yourself. Because in the soothing, there is the releasing of resistance. And in the releasing of resistance, there is the slowing of unwanted momentum and then the subsequent speeding of wanted momentum. So the more you can soothe yourself. But we don't want to soothe you with things that aren't law-based and accurate. We don't want to say to Luke, the game is rigged. We want to say to Luke, you're more likely to win when you're feeling good. We don't want to say to Luke, it's hard to get that ball in that basket under those conditions because they've got everything slanted against you. We want to say to him, there is a way to do it. People are doing it, and if you want to do it, you can find the way to do it, and you might not find it immediately, but you can find the way to do it. But your vibration and how you feel about it, the game has to be fun, or you're not going to win playing. That really is the message that we're wanting to send. You have to choose the disc first and then apply. And so in fairness, we're being unfair because we're asking you from where you have clearly stated that you are to try to find that high-flying disc. And it's not even possible from where you are in that momentum to find that high-flying disc. So then what's the point of it? If I can't find it, given where I am, what do? Well, you look for as much distraction as you can find. You look for as many things that are general in nature that make you feel good. You set goals like, I'm going to pay attention to the way I feel. You set goals like, I really care about how I feel. You say, my singular goal is to get on that high-flying disc. My singular goal is to feel some positive emotion. My singular goal is to breathe deeply and feel good again. Esther remembers vividly after Jerry made his transition, sitting on the deck in Del Mar and looking out at the ocean and breathing her first really good, fresh breath of air that she'd had in a long, long time. And it felt in that breathing of it in like the big black cloud lifted. And in none of that was there any wrongness about sadness or wrongness about being on a lower disc. There's just this eternal, God-given, inherent, innate, it's within every fiber of your being, knowledge and desire to be here. Because that's what's natural to you, you see. So the easiest way we know to get there is to not be there, which makes you want to be there. And then put yourself in your bed tonight and say something really soft and gentle. Not, tomorrow I'm going to make it happen, or tomorrow I'm going to get on the high-flying disc and I'm going to stay there. Nothing like that, because in all of that efforting, you just pick those efforting discs. Instead, you just say, tomorrow's going to be a good day. And I'm going to be aware of where I am. And I'm sure when I first awaken, I'm going to feel that conscious awareness of lack of negative momentum. And then when you awaken, just lie there for a moment and feel for it. And if you do that, we promise you, all of you, if your singular intent, when you put yourself to bed every night, is tomorrow I'm going to start here, and I might not even make it till breakfast, but I'm going to start there. And you do that tomorrow, and then whatever happens, happens tomorrow. And then the next day, you start there, and whatever happens, happens. And then the next day, you start there, and then whatever happens, happens. You might get a week or 2 or 3 into it, but it is our promise to you. You will find that high-flying disc, and it will be evident enough to you that then the results of that day, if you wait until the manifestation or even until the emotion, now you're not out ahead of it. Now you're having the knee-jerk response. And that's what we meant when we were talking about momentum earlier. If you start in a neutral place, you could either promote the momentum that you want or not be a catalyst to the momentum that you don't want. In other words, you could stand in front of the car that's getting ready to roll off into the ocean and you could hold it where you want it to be. Or if you wanted it to move off into the ocean, you could give it a nudge and off it would go. You want to get out ahead of it, you see. And so what most people do, they wait until the momentum's already underway and then they say, now what do I do? And we say, well, all you can do is action, and it's not ever enough. And so then it's like the analogy that we've offered for so many years. You've jumped out of an airplane, you're at 30,000 feet, you have no parachute, and you say, what do I do? And we say, hang on, it'll be over in a little bit. Because the momentum is such, there's not a lot for you to do. But if you get out ahead of it, if you envision things the way you want them to be, if you care about how you feel, it's so simplistic that a lot of people can't even hear it. There's just not enough angst or struggle or trauma or drama in it for most people when we say how you feel is everything and you have control of how you feel. And most everybody, to some extent, will argue for their limitations. Yeah, but this made me feel this way, and this made me feel this way, and this made me feel this way. And we want to say to you, it doesn't matter what happened or how you feel about it. You have the option of choosing a better option of how you feel about it. One of the things that was really on Esther's mind is that the week before, she had gone to that same fair. It's the first time she'd ever been there. They'd been in the area for years. First time they'd ever been there. And friends invited them to go to see Colby Calais and go to the fair. Now, this group of friends was high flying. It's just who they always are when they get together. And so it was a day like Kate had, of everything going exactly right. And when you have a few days of everything going exactly right, and by that we mean strangers play with you in meaningful ways, weather cooperates with you in incredibly meaningful ways, all manner of things. It's like the concierge in the sky has named you the most important person alive and is just walking ahead of you, clearing the space to make sure that everything in your world is perfect. That's what it feels like. That's what it is like. That's what it bees like when you get on that high-flying disc and you stay there just for a little while. And then things just come out of the woodwork. Things that you're not conjuring, things that you're not demanding. You're not orchestrating them. You're not even planning them so much. This sounds like an odd conversation to have in a seminar that's sort of based on deliberate creation. But we want to call it deliberate getting on the disking. Period. Deliberately get on the disc and then watch what happens, because you're right. Your vortex is pregnant with all of those things that you want. It's bulging with all of the things that you want. You've been asking and asking. It's all there. It's queued up. It's ready. There's just one thing that has to happen. You've got to become a cooperative component. You've got to get on that disc where all of that is. You got to get there, and you can, and it's not hard. You just can't keep telling the same story. When you use the leverage of the vortex, you trim years of sifting and struggle and false alarms and wild goose chases. You trim it all off because you get right to what counts, and then the universe says, here, 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 until finally you say, all right already. Let me just enjoy this for a while. It's coming pretty fast. Jerry will say to Esther when he sees her out of sync a little bit, their lives are very busy, and sometimes Esther will get overwhelmed and out of whack. Sometimes he does too. And Jerry will say, why don't we sit and meditate, or why don't we just sit and get into alignment? And Esther's answer, she often laughs right after she says, is that I don't have time for that. I don't have to, and Jerry never says anything in response to that anymore. He's gotten very smart in his time with Esther. But his thought is, you don't have time not to do that. He does not want to get in the bus and start driving down the highway with her if she's not in the vortex. A very, very wise man. In other words, if she's in the vortex, traffic goes well, everything goes well, the bus operates well, her instincts are right on. It's a big piece of equipment to be moving around, and you don't want to be out of the vortex when you're moving it around, you see. And you don't want to be moving around in life at all, whether you're driving a monster bus or a lawnmower or anything else. You don't want want to be out of the vortex while you're hiring people. You don't want to be out of the vortex while you're planning what's next. You don't want to be out of the vortex when you're ordering lunch. You don't want to be out of the vortex when you're eating lunch. You don't want to be out of the vortex when you're talking to people you love. You don't want to be out of the vortex when you're talking to people that you're just meeting. You want to be in the vortex. You want to be an extension of source. That's who you are. And anything less than that is just not enough, and it will always feel off to you, you see. The fact that you exist in your physical form and that you are interacting with people, that you are interacting with the sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches of your world are causing you to further ask for more and to further fill in the grid. In other words, we are, in essence, like a vibrational grid that you are precisely filling in, although that's not completely accurate because we're out here on the leading edge with you. As you are exploring the details of what you are living, you come with more precision about what you want. And every time you come with more precision about it, you put a component of it in this vortex that now maybe it would be better to call it a vibrational grid. In other words, you're putting it there. The reason that we talk about the vortex in the way that we do is because that is the grid that holds the basis of all things that you consider to be good from the beginning of all time, you see. Everything that you have sifted and sorted, genius, leading edge creators that you are, that you've defined, when someone's rude, you want nicer. That goes into the grid. The rude doesn't. The rude creates another kind of grid. That's why humans have decided that there is a devil or that there is evil. Because every thought that is ever thought still exists, and law of attraction put those thoughts together. So there is an emotional grid that is before all things, the beginning of everything. Now, even using the word grid is making you visualize something that has already been materialized. And that was really not our intent with that. We don't want you to need the vibrational basis to be a tangible, seeable, hearable, smellable, tastable, touchable object. We want it to be something that you feel. We want the emotional grid to be what you feel. So we want the basis of the grid to be understood by you to be love, or appreciation, or joy. In other words, even as we do that, we're making it more tangible than maybe sometimes is good for you, because when we use the word love, you remember who doesn't love you. And when we use the word appreciation, you remember who's mad at you. And so you've got to be really determined as you are creating this emotional grid. That's why we say, don't try to think too much about it. Go someplace where something beautiful can tune you to it. When someone loves you and holds you as their object of attention, if you allow them to hold you as their object of attention long enough, they can tune you into vibrational alignment with well-being. That's why being in love feels so good. Someone holds you as their object of attention from their place of connection to that which is source, to that which is pure love. And as they hold you as their object of attention, they literally, if you allow it, tune you to that higher frequency. That's why the little beasts of your planet are so lovely. Your dogs and your cats and your whales and so on. You don't really feel tender about the insects, but you could. But find something to focus upon that allows you to reside in a non-thinking, a non-critical, a non-trying to make something happen from it, a non-demanding that it become a tangible manifestation state of being. Just a state of being where something like contemplating your Earth spinning in its orbit could be a very emotional. Don't you like that? Don't you like that your Earth spins in its orbit? Don't you like that? Now, can you get general enough to make that be a good feeling to you? When you just think about it doing that, it's not asking anything of any of you. There's no earth spinning committee. It's not part of Homeland Security yet. It isn't. Or when you think about the ocean just lapping up on the beach, isn't that a good feeling? Or when you think about your cat stretched out on its back in the sun. Doesn't that feel good when you think about it? Does it feel good when you think about it? If it doesn't, choose something else. But surely there are so many things that you can just quiet your mind to contemplate that help you to establish an emotional grid And you don't have to be there very long before it begins to fill in with good feeling things. So the